All right. Hi, Paul Sakis, Good News Planet. I'm here with Faith McDonald. Hey, Faith, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, Faith. On the loving end of crazy, finding hope and help to face your loved one's crippling anxiety and depression. Oh boy. Okay. So, I go, oh boy, there's like a little Jewish New York thing. Uh, but on the other hand, you're dealing with a scenario that you see in front of yourself with your own child, I think, in this, you'll tell us. Um, and, uh, and sometimes these things just don't even get noticed. So noticing that there's a problem, then potentially, or not even say a problem, a change or whatever. You tell me, how did you know? Tell me about your book and your experience.
Yeah. Well, when my oldest son went to college, instead of thriving, he spiraled down.
Uh-huh.
He actually didn't attend classes, which was startling to me. Began to spend most his time partying, getting occasionally arrested for public drunkenness. So it was a big shock. At the time, we didn't really know what was going on. Took us a little while just to connect with the fact that he was really dealing with crippling depression and anxiety. He wasn't dealing, he was being assaulted by, right? Trying to cope without getting any help.
Now if I understand this right, you're a professor, right? You're a teacher.
Mhm. Yeah, I
So,
teach writing at Penn State.
all right, Penn State's a university, right?
Yeah,
College.
yeah.
And so you, on almost a daily basis, you're working children similar to your own age child, right?
Yes, at the time. Yeah.
So, so you're looking at a lot of anxious children. College is not so easy. People think they had a good time and partied, but boy, the stress of your peers, the stress of tests. It's like high school. Everybody thinks back, and a lot of times you think, hey, God, I had so much fun. I had so much fun. I mean, I had so much fun. I was tortured in many respects. you could get depressed. Was your, so what does the book share with us that can help others? Because this is a common reality. You go from your mommy to now nobody. You're in there with people from now you're not in your little college, high school class with 100 graduates, 200, 300 graduates, like I had a little Terrytown. Now I'm with 1,000 people or whatever. I think everybody's different upbringing. Help. How do we help? How do you prepare a child for that? And then what do you do if you see they're not doing so well? And
Wow, that's
share that.
a lot of questions. I
I
think,
wasn't a good student for one question.
yeah. For us, it was just the reality of, wow, this is a something that can go on that can really interfere with progress. And it was a few years ago, so mental health, mental illness wasn't as prominently talked about as it is today. And we just kept telling our son, come on, get it together, you can do this. But really, somebody who's struggling with depression and anxiety at a great extent, they get to a place where they can't do anything. And so they really need the support of their parents or friends, professionals. Yeah, so I think acknowledging that college is a really stressful time, like you said. Many college students say that they've been told, well, this is the best time of your life. I always tell them, you know what, college wasn't the best time of my life. You got lots of good things ahead of you. You don't have to have the best time of your life here. Um, you live and you grow and you learn to deal with the difficult situations that come your way.
So if your son didn't, sort of get into trouble, would you have realized it? And did he ever open up with you prior to that?
He did not open up at all. All we saw were signs. And so I think to parents now whose kids are going to college via Zoom or their college experience has been so disrupted, Maybe your kid isn't going to say, oh, I feel depressed, or I feel so anxious, I can't go to class, or I can't do my work, but you see signs. For us, that it was excessive alcohol, inability to function on a daily basis like he used to function, extreme withdrawal into himself, and a pretty much amount of grouchiness. So that kind of makes it hard, I think, for anyone who's approaching someone who's struggling like this, because you're initially going to be pushed away.
Well, I apologize. I haven't read the book, but so how? Well, I'll just ask you. I mean, so in high school, before he went away to college, did you have an open communication with him? I mean, I know teenagers are. I'm a grandpa, so
Yeah.
it's not always necessarily do you have a strong communications with your own child. My father was good for everybody else, not necessarily that I have the greatest communications with him.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? I think we had as good of communication as you can probably have. I know that he's our first child, so we didn't really know what normal teenage looked like.
Yes.
So when he would push us away, when he, began to spiral down, and repeatedly, the first time he was arrested for underage drinking and public drunkenness, I went to pick him up at the police station, and the policeman said, oh, this isn't anything we haven't done ourselves. And I'm thinking, well, it's something I haven't done. But you're so startled. And I suppose there are a few students who, they make a mistake their first few months on campus and ends up like that. But repeatedly, things like that, you have a problem.
So tell us about the book. So because the book is the subject is your son, or the subject is the subject itself, anxiety, depression. Uh, uh, share the essence of the book.
Okay, thanks. I wrote the book, and basically it's a story of my journey alongside our son. When we were going through this, I felt very alone. I felt embarrassed and ashamed. I felt helpless. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get help. And so when we got to the other side, when our son began to get healthy, I wanted to be a person who says to somebody who's going through this, health, you can get better. Our son had a psychotic break and was in the hospital for many, many days, and nobody has ever said to me he can get better. So we were at this point where our son was suicidal. He was, if he was awake, he was in bed with the covers over his head. And nobody said to me he can get better. And I said afterwards, I said, well, it would have been easier if you said he could get better. And they said, well, we don't really know. But the truth is, people get better. And so I wanted to be a person saying that to other moms like me. Your kid can get better. You can get help. You don't have to feel embarrassed. This isn't anything you did. You don't have to be lonely.
What kind of hospital was it? Where was he?
He was in the behavioral health unit of our local hospital.
They don't sound like optimistic people, and now you should be. I mean, everybody knows you put a smile on someone's face, they're going to be healthier like within a second or two.
Yeah.
And encouragement and positiveness. The glass has to be half full, right? I think, I believe you'll get more from positive. Well, I'm Good News Broadcast, so
Yeah.
that's it. We just want to focus on the positive, accentuate the positive, minimize the negative. So what will you tell others out there who, I think a lot of kids, just the adjustment, I know the college, the first year by far, is a big adjustment, and sometimes they push you to run into a fraternity
Mm-hmm.
or whatever organizations, associations, by the second semester. I did the worst I did in college in my first semester. And then I pledged, and then that's a scenario of unto itself. So it's hard, I think, the first year. maybe we put too much pressure on people in the first year. Maybe we should say no applying for for fraternities and sororities and organizations and associations. Maybe, what do you have? Do you have some suggestions that you think that college kids might want to consider, or administrators?
Well, I guess I was thinking more parents, make sure you're in touch with your kid and realize that it can be such a stressful time. Um, as far as college, I
You can
think
forget about the college question. We don't have to get into fixing the colleges of
Yeah.
America that supposedly are so great and so expensive. No, so
Well, there you go. I mean, think of it, the student debt is astronomical for these kids and they're coming out. Some of them don't even think about that, but some of them realize like, wow, I'm spending a lot of money to come to college. That's depressing.
that by far, and in essence, in many cases, at least a good portion of it is the responsibility to your own folks. Because in most cases, I imagine it's the folks that are paying for the college. Maybe not entirely or whatever, or maybe not at all, but I think the good odds, I saved, my wife and I saved our whole, you know, 18 years of our marriage to, or whatever, to put $100,000 cash away from jobs where we were maybe making $10,000 and $12,000 each of us, so we saved knowing we got to put that kid in college. So if the child knows that, and the child knows too that you saved, because you're not living unless you're financially very successful, and most families aren't, very, very, they're not the one percenters. And so,
Right.
all right. So going in, that's stressful. Well, what did your son say? What does your son think?
What does he think? Wow. Well, he wants his story to help other people. That was the reason I was able to write it, because I talk about the things that he went
You
through.
tell him I respect him, and we play this back. I think the world of your son and the strength in his character. He's going to do great in this world.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It's not easy for someone who struggles, with depression like he does. It's like, I don't know, it's hard, because I think when you don't struggle with depression, you just don't understand, or I don't understand even to this day, like, well, just get up, be cheerful, express some gratitude, go for a run.
So give me more. What would he say here if he was part of this interview? What do you think?
What would he say? Well, he would thank us for our support. That was one thing that became really meaningful to me. There were many, many, many years that we spent at odds with him. He was very hostile, didn't really accept our help, lots of conflict, but we've been able to come back to a place where he sees us as supportive. So he's thankful for that. And, he's adamant about helping other people who are struggling.
Wow. I open my airwave to him. If he'd like to have a conversation as
No,
well,
I'll tell him. Okay.
I'd be honored to have a moment with him, and make sooner than later, because it would be a nice thing to put together.
Okay, I'll tell him that. What should I email you, or?
Yeah, we'll do numbers after this, and
Okay.
I'll give you my information or whatever. So that would be nice. Give us another thought in the book that you'd like people to have heard.
Well, for me, prayer was essential in coping with going through this. Person of faith, I really, really struggled though when I saw my son struggling like he was, and just prayed and prayed and prayed, and learned a lot about, I think, life and suffering, and letting these devastating circumstances become something that make me a more compassionate person,
Sure. Yeah.
And that was what another, not the main point of the book, but I think that was a grace that God allowed me, that we were able to get through this. As I like myself better, you know, I'm not so like judgmental or much more empathetic, things like that.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful. So you had a catharsis yourself,
yeah, yeah,
with
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. Well, and it's a daily thing too, you know.
Of course, every moment you're still in the game.
Yeah.
Well, this is beautiful. Let me ask you one last question, and thank you very much for being so open with your own personal scenario and family scenario. It's a beautiful, important, very, very important for people to hear. Um, because in essence, I remember one psychologist saying, I asked the, you know, did you know any, you know, our psychiatrist, they said, do you know any family that's totally perfect? And he said, I've never seen a perfect.
Right. Well, and even that goal is kind of silly, right?
Yes, we're human beings. We have our foibles and we grow through them, hopefully, in a
Yeah.
beautiful way. Let me ask you the last question. What would be good? How do you create, what's good news for you in
Good
life?
news for me? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I have a little granddaughter. She's adorable. She's good news.
That's beautiful.
I mean, I really cultivate gratitude. That was one of the things I learned would help me through hard times. And so if I, you know, this morning, I mean, it sounds so Pollyanna-ish, but I hear birds singing. I'm like, oh, thank you, God, you know, for birds and for spring that's coming. And
It's beautiful. I'm on your same page. I'm a interfaith, all faith spiritual minister. So Reverend Paul. So I love it all. And I just this morning sent to my friends something about that Emerson poem where the flowers are awakening or something. Forgot what it was, but you know, I'm the nature of our life. We are blessed, and you know, we're just so lucky. Or as Emerson said, the earth laughs in flowers.
mm.
It's all good. Thanks so much for sharing good news with us. Best of luck on that. And where can people find the book?
The book's available at Amazon, and again, it's called On the Loving End of Crazy. Also have a website where I write regularly about loving someone through depression, anxiety, other difficulties, and that website is faithmcdonald.com.
And of course, your first name was meant to be. Thanks,
Yeah,
Dave.
it has
Appreciate
a
it.
story. Yeah.
I'm sure. Thank you. Talk
You're
to you again.
welcome.
Look forward to speaking with you again and your son. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.